Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your film. Thank you for your time. Okay, and I remember the first time I see your film in Venice, it was a big surprise at the end of the film to discover that the story was real. That's okay. The Gary Johnson was a real person, and it's not exactly a fiction. Okay, okay. The first question is about that. Okay, to explain how did you come to this story? How did you come to this article? I have read that it was first article in a newspaper or a magazine or something like that. Okay, maybe that is a good introduction to the film to explain the.
Yeah. Well, I read this article back in 2001. That's a long time ago, about this undercover officer in the police department who also was a college instructor. He lived alone, kind of a Zen mastery kind of guy. Fascinating character. And I just thought, what an interesting occupation, someone who fakes being a hitman to kill people. So anyway, that stayed with me for years, that article, and I had a few meetings on it over the years. It wasn't until during the pandemic, Glen Powell, this is 2020, he called me saying he had read this article about an undercover hitman. And then we were just sort of off to the races because I kind of needed a creative partner on it. I was sort of stuck on what the story would be, but we had a lot of fun working on it and had some good ideas of how to make a movie out of it. So.
Okay. We thought it also, okay, Austin.
Yeah.
Austin Amelio. He is from Austin, obviously.
Yes, yeah.
The family name is Italian family name.
It is Italian, yes.
And the most important part is you are working here in Spain. With Urbizu.
Yes.
Okay. We are here to speak about this film, but first of all, I would like to explain something about your work with Urbizu.
Okay.
On what.
You want me to tell them?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Hi, hey everyone. How are you? Thanks for watching the film. Yeah, I'm here in Madrid. I've been here for the past 4 months working on HBO Max, now called Max, Spanish thriller with Enrique Urbizu, and yeah, we just actually wrapped yesterday. So now I'm sad and happy, but that I get to come to this. So this is a really cool treat to be here.
Okay, Rick, this is not exactly a comedy. This is a comedy, obviously, but it's also a thriller. It's also a drama. It's also a romance. It's a lot of things, a lot of genres. I would like to speak about that, okay? How difficult, how challenging is to blend the different genres, to do a film, okay, every film you do is different from the other one. It has nothing to do. You try in every film to do something different. And in this case, maybe the way you mix and blend the different genres is the most, okay, exciting part of the film. Can you explain that, speak a little bit?
It's fitting for this story that it be a complex mix of genres because the story, the character is so complex. Yeah, when I was first working on this, it was really just starts out a character piece. I didn't think of what genre it was at all. But the farther we got into it, I realized, oh, this is kind of like a film noir. You know, it's a crime film. And then when we decide that she's not this Black Widow, she's actually there. It's a great love story if you think about it. It's kind of a strange love story. Then it becomes kind of a screwball comedy too, those two old genres. And then it's also always a hitman genre, but it's about a fake hitman. So we're deconstructing that genre. So I do like this clash, this mashup of genres.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if it is exactly what the main character doing in this film is exactly legal. In a way that is promote a crime in a way, or inducing a crime in a way. I don't know if, okay, this is maybe out of the film, but I don't know if you have thought about that.
For sure. This is a dark comedy, make no mistake. It's a dark comedy, but it's about his transformation. But what I think is funny and ironic there is he's transforming from a dispassionate, introverted person to a much more passionate, you know, he's in love, there's passion, there's sex, and he's put himself out there in the world, but that also makes you very vulnerable, and you're vulnerable to hurt, you're vulnerable to doing volatile, crazy things. Love will do that to you, right? So it you know, he, by the end of the movie, he's someone he wouldn't recognize. He does things that are just, he says in the voiceover, he would never be capable of. So it's kind of a dark comic twist on how someone can change.
This is a question for, sorry, after you, please.
Oh, I was going to say, it's only the power of cinema that allows, it kind of forces the audience to sort of throw away their moral compass and not really mind when they kill Jasper here, Austin.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because if you think about it, it's like, I'm actually kind of the good guy.
Yeah.
In a way, you know, like I'm not nearly as crazy as these two, but it makes you feel like, oh, they're sort of the heroes of the film.
Again, in movies, it's a powerful medium. You say, here's our romantic couple. The audience is going to go there.
Yeah, you speak about the power of cinema, and in a way, also this film speak about cinema, how the reality could be transformed, how the reality have sense after there is a fiction, or there is a sentence in the film that is the self is a construction, and maybe the same sentence could be considered like the reality is also a construction. And that is this film. This is a movie also about acting, about the power of cinema you have mentioned, but about the power of cinema of construct a story, construct the world, construct the reality.
All those things. I mean, well, let's look at it. The cinema, the mythology and storytelling of cinema creates the notion that they're these hitmen in the first place. They don't exist. They're a product of cinema. So that's one level of reality here. And then within the film, we have a lot of role play, disguise, deceit, people not who they say they are. The characters are they're often acting on different levels and directing each other in their characters. Even when Austin says at the end, oh, isn't this where you're supposed to go? What money? From where? And he's kind of giving him their lines that he thinks they should be saying. The whole thing's a comment on performance and levels of portrayal and acting, I think.
This is a question for you, Austin. This is also a film about acting.
Yeah.
What does an actor mean in a way? What is an actor?
I don't know. I don't know. A human being, a fully fleshed out, colorful, vibrant human being that lives life. But people are always like, oh, when did you start acting? I'm like, well, there wasn't really I mean, sure, there was a time professionally, but we're all sort of acting and figuring ourselves out as we go about life, and that's sort of what the film is about, is identity. Can you create your own identity? Can you change? Can you do all these things as a human being, or are you just stuck? So I don't even know what an actor is, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, that was one of the funnest parts about doing this was, there were scenes in here where me and Glenn were having to act on top of acting in front of other people who were acting as their character, it got very meta. It got very meta. All the layers. And what an actor is, I have no idea. I think it's just it's someone who just tries to be honest and truthful in the circumstances.
Could be anyway. Could be anything.
Yeah, it could be anything. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I always say, like, anybody can act, it's just really sort of what role you get put in. Because I'm sure everybody here is their own individual, and if you put them in a movie, they would be great. Each person would have their own little section that they could do really well. But yeah, that's
okay. This is also a thing about how we use a mask to change the identity, to do something different that's we in reality we are, or something like that. For example, I have in mind, maybe it's a silly relationship, but when I have seen the film, I have thought, for example, in some like It Hot, the Billy Wilder's films, there are some max, there is also a killer, there is also a murder, okay? I could like to ask you about the references you use in order to construct the imaginary about the film. I don't know, you have in mind a particular film, a particular idea, a particular philosopher or something like that. What's
Well, there are certainly a lot of particulars around the film. It's an interesting weave. Like I said earlier, it's a film, the genres, film noir, screwball, so hitman movie. The movie itself has a montage of hitman movies, this thing that gives it, creates the myth, represents the myth of the hitman movie. But films I thought of mentioned Billy Wilder, like Double Indemnity, Lady Eve, some of the screwball comedies. But Billy Wilder is probably a little more indicative because he could put a comedy on top of a tragedy. In the middle of something funny, someone could get killed. He had this kind of continuous, maybe there was dark humor around everything, whether it was a comedy or a much more about like a crime drama. So his sensibility probably is closest to something I was going for, really.
it is from another point of view, it's very difficult. I would like to speak a little about your filmography, your previous work. Okay, it's very difficult to find a link in order to organize your work and your filmography. Every film tried to do something different. You have made also animation, you have made everything in a way, and this is a good example. But at the same time, I have the impression that there is something in common that's maybe could be the idea of time in a way. This is very present in Before trilogy. This is very present, obviously, in Boyhood. And I don't know why, but I have the idea, the idea of tempo that's there is always in comedy is very important. I don't know. Do you think that's maybe do you agree with the idea that maybe time is a good link for your filmography, is a good thing of your filmography to define your filmography?
Well, time is so fundamental. Movies are probably the most time-based art form. Not that music is in time, but music is in a linear time, where movies can go back in time. They can change, pretty wildly. They can move around time in a way other art forms not so much. So yes, we're all, as Tarkovsky says, sculpting in time. I think I've used time as a structuring device, maybe sometimes in lieu of plot. But this movie, it's more tempo and than time. The time isn't the structural device. Although if you really look at the time, we cover a lot of time, and then so much of this movie happens in one day toward the end. All the drama and action really is in a very compressed day. So the time structure shifts pretty dramatically, and I think you kind of feel it internally, like, oh, this is getting very real. So that was intentional. It was like to get this genre to work, we get the pressure cooker, we call it, turning up the flame a little bit. We were trying to take you on a thrill ride, and if I was going to do that, I wanted to really do it,
Austin, after working here in Spain
Yeah.
and America, okay, this is a typical question. How different is working in Europe and in America? There are any different? And in the independent movie is always the same everywhere. I don't know. What is your feeling about that?
Well, it depends. It depends who you work with, what you're working on.
Okay.
A lot of bocatas. I mean, you know, I don't know. It just depends on what you're working on. You know, I did a show in the States, The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead, and that was a lot of hours, you know, really long days. And here it seems to go by really quick. But that's just because I'm working with a certain director and we don't do too many takes. So and then with Rick, you know, it all depends. Sometimes we get it, and then other times, you know, we're really trying to work through the scene and figure out tempo or figure out, you know, just trying to dive in and really nail it. But I like working always, you know, it's just who you're working with. It makes a big difference.
Yeah. How difficult, Rick, is to do a film now? I know that you have fight a lot in order to do this film. 2 years, more than 2 years or something like that, I have read, okay? And the universe of the movie universe has changed a lot. You have mentioned the role of the series. Okay, I think you have also done a series about Texas or something like that. Or okay, okay. The question is very general, but you have begun in the 90s with the independent cinema. Okay, everything is changed in a way. How different is now working, and how difficult is now to do a film?
You know, I'm of two minds. It has stayed the same. And making films, you know, you're just trying to get your next film made. And there's something very constant about movie making and the impulse behind it. I think for everybody, for 125 years, there's one level of filmmaking that hasn't changed that much. You know, people trying to get stories told. On the other hand, the industry is always changing. It always has. It's always shifting around. People are always very paranoid and skeptical and thinking it's the worst of times. So I try not to judge it too much. You know, I'm just like trying to get my next film made and do what I feel led to do. You know, I mean, I guess the delivery systems change. You know, I've seen the studio systems change. To me, the biggest change has been the studios, the kind of films they're not making anymore. They didn't want to do this film, even though we're like a sexy comedy thriller that have all this stuff. They didn't think this movie was for them. So that tells you something, that they kind of don't want to be an adult. They don't want to be in the adult film, you know, complex adult world. They'll stay in the kids' world. So.
Okay, do you consider yourself an optimistic person? Do you think that all pie is a good pie?
That's technically not true. There's bad pie in the world for sure. But no, I've earned my optimistic status. You know, I'm not fundamentally that way, but there's always stuff to, you know, look forward to, and just the notion we can be better and things can get better. And yeah, so I think I'm an optimist. You know, this film, despite its small body count, I think is an optimistic film that people can change and for the better. And, you know.
For the better, not exactly, maybe. Can change. People can change. Maybe not exactly for the better, but anyway. This... creo que tenemos tiempo para que hagan preguntas el público. That is the time for the public. We have 10 minutes, 15 minutes, okay? And now come the interesting question. No sé si tenéis alguna pregunta o algo, seguro que sí.
Firstly, thanks very much for the film. The film was fantastic. Really enjoyed it. My question is about the writing. You said this was based on an article, so it's based on truth. You've talked a little about the mix of genres. I'm interested to know more about the process of, you could have easily made this into a noir thriller, but you chose the comedy route, which was a great choice. But how did you come to that?
Well, the story I read back in 2001 and the story Glenn read years later, that story ends around the time that Gary lets the young woman who's trying to kill her husband, lets her go. So everything from then on is kind of imagined, which I wouldn't normally do in a nonfiction or a something based on true life. I would try to stick to the facts. But in this case, it felt appropriate because this whole world is fake. There aren't real hitmen. It's all, made up. So we felt this kind of freedom to keep making stuff up and following this relationship and what could happen and what happens when you're trapped in another identity. It becomes a story of identity and this notion of self. And so that was the fun, thrill ride we took within the comedy. And the comedy tone that you're asking about, yeah, I just guess I don't take myself that seriously because I can't take something like this that seriously because it's all, again, I say it's based on myth. It's fake. So I see it as pretty funny, even though there's people who are trying to kill people. I always saw it in darkly humorous terms because I listened to these surveillance tapes. I watched surveillance stings. I really did a lot of research on this over the last couple decades. And I just always think it's pretty funny that what people believe,
You speak about the fake world, but at the same time, we speak a lot about fake news, about fake reality. I don't know if you admit that maybe there is also a political comment in the film about what is happening now in this. Okay, this is a very particular year in the United States with the president.
Well, I think it's always dangerous when people can be led to believe things so easily that we've lost touch with just facts or the quest for knowledge and facts, which is something that could pass the scientific test, that it just, I think more and more now, humanity lives in a fantasy world. And that could be fun and positive, or it can be really dark too. So it's just dangerous when people lose the ability to tell, what's real and not, or even the interest in knowing what's real or not. So I'm a natural skeptic and debunker. I don't believe, I want to see proof of things before people throw out crazy ideas and act like it's real. So I enjoyed the debunking, what we call debunking or myth busting of the hitman, because I've just always found that fascinating that people believe that. But yeah, a little discernment, and the truth is more interesting, the true facts of the natural world are better than the stuff people make up.
No sé si hay alguna pregunta más por ahí.
Hey, thank you so much for the film. I really, really enjoyed it. Found it really funny that Gary is a birder and he's into birding. And first date between Madison and Gary is in a dog rescue. But I believe, if I'm correct, you're involved also in dog rescue in Austin, like because of that animal rescue show. And yeah. So there's this conversation about cats and dogs and being a cat person or dog person. So I was wondering if any of that is based in the real Gary Johnson, or is there some sort of a symbology about animals you wanted to introduce in the script?
Well, yeah, it was just one more thing I liked about Gary Johnson. I got to know him a lot, but he was a real animal lover, and he did have these two cats, and we included in the movie. That was one more transformation that by the end, Gary, who's more Ron, he has dogs in his life too. So I love them both. I have cats and dogs, and not to mention a bunch of other animals. So I don't know. It's just one more thing that I think humanizes him. His birding, but it also, in a comic way, shows he's a little more comfortable. It is a trait that some people are just more comfortable with animals than humans. And I think Gary's in that category, especially at the beginning of the movie.
I don't know if you can say something about your new project. I have right here. This is Merrily We Roll Along is your next movie. That's true?
No, that is definitely not my next movie.
Okay, sorry.
Only because it's not going to be finished for like 17 more years. So I hope to have other films come out in the meantime. That's the long-term project I'm in the middle of. Not in the middle, I'm at the beginning of.
Okay. Okay. We have finished. Okay, I remember a sentence in Walking Life. This is dream is destiny. This is the okay. I don't know if you maintain this. What kind of relationship do you have with this sentence? Dream is destiny. It's very present also in this film.
Well, I believe we do create our realities in a certain way. And what you do dream, if you really work, can kind of occupy your personal dreams. You know, I'm living in my own best version of what I could have dreamed for myself, getting to make movies, you know, working with the great people I've worked with. So I don't know. I kind of believe that, but you know, that's many layers to that thing, but that's one of them. You know, follow your dreams, make them real.
Austin, you have spent 4 months here in Spain?
4 months, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
ready to get back to Texas and get some Tex-Mex. I miss it.
Just when it got hot.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe I gotta stay away from
That is the beginning of something. That is the first step to a Spanish career or something like that.
Oh man, yeah. I don't know. I just go job by job. We'll see.
Okay, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to speak with you. It was a pleasure to see your film. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your entire filmography. Thank you. Thank
I
you.
want to thank all of you for being here. It was very special having Austin here for me. He's missed out. The film has come out. He's
No,
I haven't seen you enough. We've had
I
these
know.
screenings.
It's so good to see you. We'll get lunch when I get back.
Yeah, can't wait.
Well,